Yes, so we're in a time of transition here. All these folks who just shared are in a time of transition. This church is in a time of transition, and we are just blessed for the ministry of Pastor Kathi, and we had a wonderful send-off for her last Sunday, and we are looking forward to the ministry of Pastor Dave Samelson, who will be joining us July 1st, and his first Sunday will be July 3rd. It turns out Kathi and Dave have become good friends in this transition process, and they've filmed some videos that they'd like to share with us these next 3 Sundays, and here's the first one.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, Kathi. All right, it is so good to be here.
It's really good to have you here.
So I've got a question. Tell me about this church's vision for the future.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, because we worked so hard on this. In the beginning of 2020, we rolled out a new vision statement that started with the words, "We believe God has this great hope for the world, communities where life flourishes for everyone." And then we said, together, we are building that kind of community in this place with sustained connections with God and ourselves, with our families, with our neighbors, with one another, with actions that stretch us toward a wider compassion, and with courage to take meaningful risks. And you know, all of that has been important to us as a congregation. I think every part of that describes LAUMC well. But the part I think that really captures us and felt like it reflects who this congregation is the part about sustained connections. Sustained connections over time and over space and over difficulties like the pandemic. Connections with, as we said, with God and with one another, but also with the community that takes different shape in different times, but always connections that help build life that flourishes for everyone. Yeah. How does that idea of sustained connections resonate for you and for your ministry?
Yeah. So I think we're living in the most divisive time ever. And there's a term that I use to describe it. I call it a divisive toxicity. And I think this divisive toxicity has seeped into our politics. It's seeped into many churches, and it's really seeped into many families, just tearing things apart, tearing people apart. Adding to it is the prevalence of this idea that has become incredibly popular that you never say you're wrong, you never admit you're wrong, you just double down, triple down, quadruple down. What a stupid idea, but it's popular. Yeah. So all of that has basically threatened so many connections. So the idea of sustaining connections is really staying alive. I think without that sustainability, we're sunk. So how are connections sustained in this toxic world we're living in? So yeah, it makes complete sense. So when I was appointed to Point Pleasant 6 years ago, Point Pleasant is incredibly diverse, theologically, politically, culturally, one of the most diverse churches in the conference. And I quickly came to realize, now think about it, 2016, think about what was happening in 2016. That's when I went there. As this divisive toxicity was just becoming more and more intense, I realized if it infiltrated into this church, we would get diced up into 100 different pieces. And so early on, working with the staff and leaders, we made a pledge. We're not going to allow this divisive toxicity to filter into, to seep into the life, the lived out life of this church. Only problem was we had no idea how to do that. And but really that's been my main quest over the last 6 years. And really everything we do is in an effort to prevent this divisive toxicness from filtering in, seeping in. So we've done all sorts of things. Lots of them didn't work. They weren't necessarily harmful, but they just didn't work. But there were 4 things that really worked. I'm just going to share them with you. 1, careful attention to divisive language, avoiding it. Rhetoric filled with tripwires that cause reactionary tendencies. And that was really important. Second, an intentional effort to always draw perspectives from both sides and all sides in the way we would present something. And That made a difference. Third, acknowledging our vulnerability, how often we don't know. I would say that all the time. I don't know. I don't know. And finally, and this was the most important by far, to not demonize people or groups of people in any way. We completely ruled out demonizing people. Now, you might say, how can you do that? Well, you can talk about something and an issue without layering on demonization. It's doable. Mm-hmm. That had the biggest effect of all. Collectively, we found a way to not allow that divisive toxicity to seep in. Over the last 6 years, we didn't have one person storm out of the congregation with that sort of, you did this and I'm out of here. I'm sure we had folks drift away, but we also had a whole bunch of people that were drawn to the safe space that we had created, a church that we pledged to not allow that to seep in. In addition, one of the other wonderful benefits, as he created that safe space, we heard things we never would have heard. We heard people share a lot about that toxic divisiveness in their families, in their lives. And on lots of different levels, toxicity in terms of political extremism, in terms of different views on the pandemic, in terms of racism, homophobia, in terms of conspiracy theories, even QAnon, that were tearing family members apart from other family members. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. That information, at times, we could act on. For example, during the pandemic, we found that people had all sorts of different ideas about what made them feel safe, and we realized that people felt safest when they were outside. Some people they needed to be in their cars outside, and so for 6 months, we moved service outdoors. And we're blessed with a big lawn, and it worked. We had a parking lot so people could drive in, and so there was live stream, but there was on the front lawn, and there was drive-in. And lots of people that wouldn't have been able to worship were able to worship. But it only happened because we knew how they were working at a deeper level. The other thing we learned about was conspiracy theories tearing folks apart, even QAnon. And 2 weeks after the storming of the Capitol, January 6, 2021, I preached on QAnon. I mean, I was scared. In fact, we thought about hiring security and would there be reprisals because it was live stream. But since we didn't demonize, we just talked about what it was and just kind of shed the light on it, which is incredibly powerful with conspiracy theories. Just is what it is. And then we talked about if you have folks that are in that place, don't demonize them. Don't call them stupid. Don't say, what an idiot. Don't say, if you don't let go of that, you're out of here, or I'm out of here. Don't cut them off. Love them. And be curious. Ask them, what is it that draws you to that? And it was probably the most appreciated sermon I've ever preached. And it's also one of our most watched. So yeah, when I hear about sustaining connections, it both excites me and challenges me.